All right, welcome back to Nap Trapped, kind of 2.0, where we tackle this as baby sleep detectives and answer some of the questions that have landed in our DMs and social media, comment sections, and even questions on the podcast. It's kind of rapid fire, isn't it, Beck? We've just gone through selected five, haven't really discussed. We're just going to go for it.
Yep. Because I think the beauty of us is that if we just sort of fire it away, then we can come out with what we would typically suggest for our clients. And it may not always be the same. So I think it'll be interesting to see.
I'm reading this first one and I think we might have a slightly different answer. I think you're a bit more lenient than me at times. So we'll dive straight in. Any tips on weaning off the dummy at 5 months old? My baby keeps waking up after the dummy falls out and falls asleep straight away when I put it back in. I've tried to wean off it, but she doesn't like it. She has also just transitioned to a cot because she's rolling now, and it worries me having the dummy in when she's on her tummy.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to? I'll go first.
You go first.
I'm going to say the dummy in when she's on her tummy is not a concern. Babies have dummies for months rolling around. It falls out. They can take it out. That's not my concern. I by no means am anti-dummy. I think they can become a very useful tool when babies can start to put it back in themselves, usually around 7 to 9 months. In the meantime, it can become a pest. And so the way I usually go, well, there's probably 3, depending on how many times, and the comment doesn't say. If you are having to pop it in twice overnight and it just feels a bit tedious and annoying, for me, it would be a bit like such is life with a dummy. Your baby is not yet old enough to replace it. We've added in a variable as the grown-ups in this situation. I would say pop it back in. If they go back to sleep once or twice, that is what it is, and then you can start doing less of that when you know that they can replace it on their own. However, I do work with families that despite doing all the other work to get great sleep, it is still the variable that is causing ongoing overnight problems. So at 5 months old, I would say I would have 2 options for this family. I would say that we would go in with probably a timed check sleep training technique, which is very age appropriate at 5 months. This would start at bedtime if needed, but definitely for all of these overnight wakings that aren't a scheduled feed, if feeds are still in the mix. And rather than, baby's crying, dummies come out, I'm going to race straight back in. We wait let's say 5 minutes, and then at the 5-minute time check, you go and pop it back in and leave. So we're not reinforcing that the moment we've spat the dummy, pardon the pun, that mum and dad or whoever are going to rush in and put the dummy back in. Sometimes the problem I see with that is that it doesn't fix the association, so that they may still continue to wake at the end of a sleep cycle or multiple times, wait their 5 minutes, have the dummy and go back in which case I start working to the boundary of if the dummy falls out, it stays out. And so that means that as the months go on and baby learns to replace it, they absolutely still have it there as a tool. But you go in with your consistent sleep training technique, regardless of what that is. And if the dummy has fallen out, they can learn to self-settle without it. That's my take.
I am 90% exactly the same as you, Sally.
Yeah?
Yes, I'm absolutely on board with I would put it back in. If I was using a sleep training technique, I would put it back in. Honestly, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times that I've ditched a dummy entirely for clients.
Yeah.
It's just it's one of those things where I feel like there is sometimes a point in time like that 5-6 month mark where object permanence comes into play, and our little ones then start to sort of recognize that, the dummy was in before and now it's gone, and I remember the dummy and I want the dummy back in there. And as soon as you start doing a little bit of sleep work and you sort of delay the art of going in and putting it back in, like that response, usually the technique will work. And I'm sort of guessing by what you were saying, Sally, is that the last resort would sort of just be the not putting back in, like if the sleep training was, if you weren't seeing improvement. But I would usually see improvement, yeah, I would usually see improvement. And I think it's just one of those things that is sort of, okay, well, what might feel like a long time, yeah, multiple times for me might be like 7 times. And I would think, oh God, that's extraordinary. Like I'm going
Mm,
in 7 times over the course of the night. Whereas other families might think 3 times is,
mm.
way too many times to go in. So I just sort of feel like finding that comfort level as well. Also,
Yeah,
it may be that there just needs to be a schedule tweak and so forth, and organically your night wakings are going to start
yeah.
disappearing because you need to get your naps aligned a little bit more differently and bedtime aligned a little bit more crucially. And
Get
then
some sleep
those sort
pressure
of,
on deck. Mm,
yeah, that's right. So I feel like
yeah.
it can sometimes be a combination. So I don't always jump to thinking, let's ditch the dummy. I feel like if you've invested 5 months in having the dummy in the equation and you've been going in 6 or 7 times a night to replug the thing, then you may as well just keep going for another month and then teach them how to, replug for
Mm,
themselves. So,
mm.
but
I think that's
always
where I'm
tricky.
probably a little bit of a tougher crowd where I'm like, no, if it falls out, it
Yeah.
stays out. And because for me, I don't even want to be replacing it the
Yeah.
3 times.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just me. I think also there are families who definitely also get to the point where they actually want to just get rid of it. And I
Yeah,
think
that's true.
5 months old is a fine time to do it. I would usually
Mm.
say, somewhere between before 6 months,
Yeah,
and
same.
maybe even sometimes closer to 4 months can be easier.
Mm.
But essentially, if it's no longer working, you can get rid of it. If it's after that, I usually say we wait until we've dropped the one nap so that you can still have it. Wait until you've got a 3-year-old plus, and there can be some communication, and
Yeah.
you're not needing it for that nap. But if you are going to get rid of it, I usually get rid of it, and you don't want it in the mix at all. Like nowhere near the
Mm.
cot, nowhere near the
Mm.
baby. You go cold turkey. But
Yep.
in order to do that, you have to have a consistent, great, responsive sleep training technique,
Yes.
resettling technique up your sleeve to support your baby through that, because they are not in on the plan.
Mm.
And it can sometimes feel like a rough 3 days. And then often babies don't look back. I've worked
Mhm.
with some families where they've had the dummy in the mix, but they know that the baby actually really likes to suck their thumb.
Mm.
And they've asked to take it away. We've done it, and bang, night one, the thumb
Goes
really
in.
locks
Finds
in.
its way in. Yeah.
It does. It does. So if you see that, then yeah, you can ditch it and to go full throttle with the thumb. But if you're going to get rid of it, you can ditch it cold turkey at bedtime and overnight, but be armed with a great technique that's really supportive. You can also ditch it for nights and keep it for days, and then, reverse engineer it or get rid of it for days if and when you need to. That was so much for fast and loose. That was deep dive. That was a whole episode on the dummy.
Yeah, I feel like my head's spinning because now I want to keep talking about other things like but let's
And
cut.
like different
Let's
brands
cut.
of dummy and
Yeah.
like
Oh gosh.
all right, let's go in. Next one is, hi, my 8-month-old is on 4 hourly feeds. The same times you mentioned, naps from, as in, that's going to be 7, 11, 3, and then 30 minutes before bed. We've talked about that in our episodes before. This naps from 9:30 till 11 and 2 till 3:15 p.m. and goes to bed at 7:30. Why is he still waking up lots in the early hours?
Hmm.
Good question.
So that is a really good question, and I have heard it differently now than what we sort of when we or went through it organically. Oh God, that's not the word. When we went through it before we started our little chat.
When we
So
chose it.
when we chose it. So initially, my thought process for this was, okay, so we're an 8-month-old. We've moved to 2 naps, but she's still on
And
the
they're
four
good naps.
feeds. They're really good They're really good
Those,
naps.
yeah. Yeah.
They're good naps. The fact that little one is going to bed at 3:15, like waking up at 3:15 from nap 2, but then not going to bed until 7:15 is
7:30.
potentially an issue. Oh, 7:30. So yeah, so that's a
Mm,
really long wake window. So when
yeah.
we're moving to 2 naps, it would be a 3.5 hour wake window. So
Hmm.
technically, if baby's awake at 3:15, bedtime would be 6:45. So there can definitely be an overtired element there that's
Yep.
playing out
Which
in the
can cause
early
some early
hours.
out. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. But then the other avenue that I would probably explore is when we move to a 2 nap schedule, usually between 8 and 9 months, we would want to be dropping to 3 feeds through the day, 3
Hmm.
really well-timed feeds, because when we're on 4 feeds, what would typically happen is if baby is waking from their second nap at around 3:15, 3:30, and we're putting a big feed in there, so that would be feed number 3, then you've got a 3.5 hour window to then put that full feed in, dinner, and then another feed before bed. And what we typically see is that feed after nap 2 will be a really good one because they've had a nice long sleep and they're ready for
Hmm.
another big feed. And then we charge in with some dinner at 5 o'clock. So 3:30 big feed, 5 o'clock big dinner. And then there's absolutely no appetite for that final
Mm.
feed before bed. And so that final feed is often a bit of a dud.
Yeah,
And
especially if we use your numbers just before that, because at the moment the wake window is too long. So if we're then working off ideally a 6:45 p.m. bed and we do our milk feed 30 minutes before, we're talking a 6:15 final
15,
milk feed, and they've
yeah,
just had a full bottle at 3:15 plus dinner at, let's say, 5.
5, yeah.
Come 6:15, it's going to be a sip.
So that will play out in terms of, okay, well, now I'm going to be really hungry come 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the
Mm.
morning, and so if mum or dad is trying to resettle in the early hours without a milk feed, that can be pushing uphill. It's a real
Mm.
battle
There may
because,
be some hunger.
yeah, so you may be finding that, okay, baby's like, okay, well, I'll go back off to sleep after I resettle at 3 a.m., but then bang, they're awake at 4. And it's sort of like, guys, I'm actually really hungry here. Let's,
Yeah.
so you absolutely in this scenario, I would be wanting to look at shifting calories through managing the feeds a little bit differently through the day, just to optimize that last
So
feed
where
of the
would you
night.
put your milk feeds? Because I know that question is the next
It's
going to
going to
be the
come up,
follow up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on a 2 nap schedule, I would have the second milk feed half an hour before nap 2.
Hmm.
So in this scenario, if nap 2 is starting at 1:30
2. This one's
or two
starting at
o'clock
2.
at
Yep.
2, then I would have the milk feed at 1:30.
Yep.
So
And
1:30
then,
milk feed, 2 till 3:15 nap, and then I would have dinner at 5 or quarter to 5, and then 6:15 final milk feed. So you're
yep.
spacing everything beautifully so that and the other thing to consider too is that you're not actually losing calories in the second half of the day by dropping to 3 milk feeds. You are still having 2 beautifully well-timed milk feeds in the second half of the day. They're just
Mm.
spaced differently to create more appetite for dinner and create the appetite for the final feed of the night. So you can rest assured that you're still getting the same amount of calories,
Mm.
if not
I'd
more.
also be looking to make sure that to some extent protein has been added
Mm.
in at 8 months,
Yep.
just to help, again, eradicate some hunger and carry over into those early hours. Whenever I look at early hours wakings, I also want to make sure that baby's not too cold,
Mm.
that it's not too, I mean, depending on how early or not early, you know, is it too bright? Is it too noisy? All the things that we talk about whenever we talk about early rising. But I would also be wanting to have a look at what is actually happening in those early hours. So it could be that we need a feed, yes, but if there's then, even if there is a feed, what's happening at those other wakings? Could there be an element of habit and a little bit of over responding? Is there some inconsistency? Because it's just a tricky, really tricky time of the morning, those early hours for parents, to try and consistently resettle and follow through with maybe a sleep training technique in those early hours. So I always like to have a look at what's actually happening. Or does baby get to come into bed, but maybe that's not what you want to do? Is there something worth waking up for?
That's right. And then, finally, it would be a look at the schedule of the day. And quite
Mm.
often, if there is a need to get a third nap back in the mix, it will, or like the third nap can often play a big role in that timing, that time
Yeah,
of the
fixing
night.
an early wake.
Yeah. So it could be that we need to readjust the scheduling again and add that third nap back in for a while.
Yeah. And for more on that, our very first episode of this Snapchat podcast is all about that. And it is still our most popular episode to date. So you are not alone in navigating that. All right, question number 3. Hi, lots of lovely smiley faces. If your baby, this is about a 12-month-old. If your 12-month-old baby isn't refusing the second nap and night sleep is going fine, first nap is 1.5 hours and second nap about an hour, would you change it or just leave it? So I think for a little bit more context in this is you and I often work to a transitional schedule from about 12 months onwards in order to have the smoothest ride possible when it comes to the 2-to-1 nap drop, which ideally is closer to 15 to 18 months. Part of me thinks if it's working, it's working. There are lots of ways to distribute sleep totals. I never stuck to this really. I never did a short long with my babies. I didn't have any sleep issues, so I never had to micromanage. I just kind of went with it. So part of me thinks if it ain't broke, no problem. Like you don't have to go and actively change something. My only concern is that we don't know. We don't know how long this is going to last for them. And so there is actually rationale behind why as sleep consultants we do move towards this transitional schedule, which is a short long, in order to set the stage for the 2-to-1 nap drop.
Yep. I am in the same camp. If there was issues around nights or anything like that, we would 100% start shifting that.
Definitely. Yep.
But in this regard, there's seemingly no sleep issues, so I wouldn't probably
night sleep
change
is going fine. No.
But there will be a time where it changes, and then that would be the moment to start working on, okay, let's move to a short long for sure.
Yeah. And
if you were wanting to sort of, if you were the type of personality that I was in terms of like, okay, well, I want to be in control and I don't want things to be broken before I fix them. I want to keep moving ahead, and sort of future proof, like I'll always bang on about that. Then I would sort of go, okay, well, we're at a 12-month mark here. There is the short long. I can manipulate the day to start moving in the right direction towards a 1 nap schedule. I may as well just give it a whirl now, and then it will be a seamless run. So, no, you don't have to. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to switch anything. That's the short answer, but you could if you wanted to.
Yeah. And with that, that's really helpful of us, isn't it? Like, she's really better. I do think that, let's say we were like your personality and we're like, okay, well, I've seen that this is what's recommended. I'm going to do it. Is that just remember that when we make change to nap schedules, the nights that were going fine, as it says in this, can take a hit. And so you might listen to this, make the change. Nights get a little funky and you think, oh my goodness, those girls don't know what they're bagging on about. It's a change. We are changing your little one's body clock and their distribution of sleep pressure and sleep totals. They have not listened to this podcast episode, nor has their circadian rhythm. You just guide them through it. You don't need to add anything in because they have not needed it for X amount of time. You just support them through the schedule change, just like you would if you went to another country with jet lag. You just guide them through it and don't panic, as you would say, Beck. Hold steady.
Hold steady. That's right.
And don't blame us.
No, we've got no part of this.
Sorry. Okay, last one. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that one?
Oh, there's plenty, but I could bang on about it for ages.
I think we need to do a whole episode on transitioning from 2-to-1 naps.
I agree. Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll schedule
Next
that
on the
in.
card.
Okay, what if baby is self-settling for all naps? Love it. And also bedtime, also love it, but still waking every 2 to 3 hours overnight and not settling without a feed. And from memory, this was in the context of an 8-month-old baby. Discuss. This is actually something that comes up all the time. But I've taught my baby to self-settle and they're still waking up all of these times. I did the sleep training. So, this is something we navigate. You go first.
There's just so many elements to a question like this. And it's really and there's so many elements. And so as a sleep consultant, it's very, very hard to sort of go do this and this, and then your nights will be fixed.
I want to see the intake form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to know when your milk feeds are, what time your naps are, how long they're for, like when is bedtime, what do you do when your little one wakes overnight? And there is so much that would go into the answer of how you solve that. And that's the beauty of a sleep consultant, is that they will analyze within an inch of what is happening in your day to give you the absolute correct, like the best and correct tweaks and tips and troubleshooting, scenarios to get you out of the current situation and improve your sleep. Yeah, there's so many questions that we would need to ask. But I guess in terms of like an 8-month-old, I'd be wanting to know, have you dropped to 2 naps? It would be my first question.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be wanting to know, did you drop to 2 naps and then these wakings have fired back up and you're doing more and more to help them settle? I'd be wanting to know how the
I want to
feeds
know
are going
if,
through the day.
yeah, I want to know if you're feeding 2 to 3 hourly during the day. And a lot of families that we
Yeah.
come across and work with are still feeding at 8 months, 2 to 3 hourly milk feeds, I'm talking about, during the day, which can mean that, yes, a baby may want to feed, may even need to feed every 2 to 3 hours overnight. I will say the average 8-month-old baby, if otherwise healthy and thriving, probably does not need any feeds overnight.
Yep.
They may still definitely want it.
Yep.
Who wouldn't want a buffet overnight? But they have the capacity to sleep all night long without a feed. So I would want to know where the milk feeds were placed and how much, whether it's both breasts, how much in the bottle, all of that, as well as where are solids. Because if there's genuine hunger, if they're not settling without a feed, I think 2 things. One is that, is it just really tricky to resettle without a feed? And sometimes we pick our battles and end up feeding, and then that does the trick, and there's a bit of a sleep association. How much are they taking at those overnight feeds? Like if it is, as we talked about on a previous episode, the baby that takes 1 ounce overnight, that's not hunger, that's a sleep association. But I would want to know what else is happening. Oh, there's so much to it.
There's so much. And look, like if you're not sure about, the feeds and that sort of thing, then go back to your basics and, make sure that your little one is nice and warm all through the night. Make sure the room is super dark. Go back to looking at your nap structure. Can you put that 3rd nap back in? If you have got the 3 naps in there, do you need to trim back nap 3 to create more sleep pressure? Just look at your calories in through the day. Can you bump the feeds up to make them more complete? Are they snicky snacky through the day and then they're snicky snacky overnight? If they're snicky snacky overnight and through the day, it will mean that your little one is reverse cycling and they're feeding overnight to top up, which is impacting their ability to want to take really good feeds in through the day. So looking at that, but yeah, go back to basics and just sort of rule, have a little bit of an analyzing session.
I think
yourself.
the other thing it also reminds me of is that, I mean, I have great confidence in this baby's ability. If they can self-settle for bedtime and naps, great, that skill is there. But it's really important, and I think this is where it can sometimes get confusing when you hear even us like go on and on about self-settling and we start at bedtime, and it has to be followed through consistently overnight. If there is any degree of confusion about what happens at each overnight waking, so let's say we have ruled out all of these other things, like we've read their intake form, this is not a hunger thing, this is not anything, this is habit, then self-settling, the technique, yes, you've nailed it at bedtime, amazing. You need to confidently resettle overnight wakings with the same technique so that your baby picks up on the pattern of what happens overnight, because it is common with families that I work with that they can self-settle at bedtime, but they need to be rocked 8 times overnight.
Yeah.
Or come into bed in those early hours, which is always tricky for everyone. So what I would also say is that you can have great confidence that your baby has this skill. And if you've got all of your other ducks in a row, and I think you probably need a bit of a plan around those overnight feeds and weaning and are we reverse cycling, blah, 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 blah. But in summary, when the self-settling chat, it needs to be followed through.
The question that I want to ask is, how is your little one self-settling? Because for a lot of families, self-settling happens once they've had a nice big feed and then they're popped into the cot, and because you've walked out of the door, your little one is theoretically self-settling. But for us, that's not self-settling. So often we just want to double check what the self-settling scenario is. For some families, they feel like the feed happens right before each nap
Mm.
and at bedtime. So I'd be just double checking that as well. Um,
Yeah, I want eyeballs wide open, calm but awake. I don't want drowsy, ideally. Um, I want calm but awake, and I want to watch a baby make that transition from awake to asleep on their own, not just succumb to that dreamy, milky state,
that's a really good way of
or
saying it.
or what I sometimes see is that baby is so tired, and again, like we've moved on from the root question here.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but sometimes I work with babies that are just so tired. I want to make sure that they're not just passing out.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
just, oh my God, thank goodness my head has hit this mattress. I'm out. Like, see you in 2 hours. But there's a difference between conking out with pure exhaustion from a long wake window or shocking naps to, oh, I have put myself to sleep and I have the
Yeah,
still.
yeah. Yeah. That's right. So just double checking that.
Yep. All right. I think we've probably left people with more questions than answers with all of this. But this just shows it's not just about one thing. It's not just about one thing.
I know, and because we're really thinking about this, like we're thinking from all angles, so it
Mm,
can be a little confusing, I guess, for for the listener, because we are going in from every tangent,
mm,
or going off in a lot of tangents. But it's really because it is, there's so much to sleep,
mm.
and it's not just a simple blanket answer, and we kind of just have to, like, we are dotting all the i's, crossing all the t's. You can see that our brains are really working on answering a question like this
Yeah, and
easily,
to
but
be
it's not
fair
sometimes.
to all of the listeners and commenters and like even for ourselves, like
Mm,
we're mothers too.
mm.
This is this kind of thing that I know our brains go through when our
Yeah,
babies are waking up. You are trying to be the sleep detectives and have a
yeah,
look at all the factors that we've just covered
yes.
very, very briefly and very generally. So understandably,
Mm,
and especially being tired, you can feel so lost. And it's not
yeah.
because you're doing anything wrong. And it is most certainly not because your baby is doing
No,
anything wrong. It's it's messy.
yeah, it's
There's a lot
exhausting.
of information. It's exhausting. So
Yeah,
that's where we come in and we do the thinking. You don't
yeah,
have to do it.
and yeah, you don't have to, and you can definitely reach out for help. You can look at our
Mm,
packages. You can see what we're all about in terms of, our philosophy and our methodology. It's all on our websites, but we are here to help. So if you feel like it's messy and you're overwhelmed, I can promise you, once we get your intake form, we won't be messy and
I actually
overwhelm
get
you.
so excited
Yeah.
reading intake forms because I go like
Yeah.
super sleuth. I'm like,
Yeah.
there it is. There it is.
Yeah. That-
There's a
There's
problem. I can fix
always
it.
an underlying cause. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like that's what we're looking for, the underlying cause, so that we can always get you on track with minimizing tears by knowing exactly what route we need to take in order to get your little one sleeping really
Yeah.
beautifully and for
And
you to
then,
have
yeah,
confidence in it. Yeah.
the mental load as a mother is enough as it
Mm,
is. We do not need to add in all the
mm,
complexities of baby sleep. That's what we are here for.
yeah.
All right, that is it for the sleep detectives this week. We will keep the questions coming, and we will see you on the next episode.
See you later, team.
Bye.
Bye.